healthcare costs from skyrocketing. It fails to address the crisis of affordability. It fails to keep our promise to veterans. It provides $1 million jackpot to 8 senators.
Okay, we're back live again. This is the live vote that's taking place in Congress right now in regards to the Epstein files transparency law. That and, of course, the finalization of opening up the federal government. You're going to hear a lot of crazy stuff. Here comes one of them.
And for her steadfast leadership on behalf of working families, hard-working American taxpayers in the great state of Connecticut and all across America. Mr. Speaker, I rise today in strong opposition to this woefully inadequate spending bill that fails to decisively address the Republican health care crisis and fails to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits for tens of millions of Americans. Mr. Speaker, before I say anything further, let me say to our men and women in uniform, to our active duty troops, to our hardworking federal employees, to our civil servants, to our TSA agents, to our Capitol Police, to our staff here in the House of Representatives, to our air traffic controllers, thank you for your service. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for the work that you do on behalf of the American people each and every day. And it's our promise to all of you that we will continue to work hard to make sure that you are treated with the dignity and respect that you deserve. In a year in which the Trump administration has gone after hardworking federal employees relentlessly, including firing more than 200,000 federal employees prior to the start of the Trump Republican shutdown.
Well, I'm going to disagree with that because here's really the reality of that. We have a bloated government and we have a really huge deficit, $38 trillion. And what Mr. Jeffries here does is that he plays on the victimhood of these people being fired. They were looked at, dozed, and their jobs were eliminated because they didn't think they were necessary. And so they had to downsize. Any company, any business that does the same thing, if it's a large organization, we'll take Berkshire Hathaway, for instance. Berkshire owns and stock in like literally hundreds of companies. And if they went to those companies and said to those companies, look, we have to downsize, we're going to downsize our portfolio, and we want to downsize the number of employees to increase our profit, each one of those businesses would be required to terminate or lay off people. Right now, AI is really becoming a huge part in the corporate layoffs that we're seeing in regards to people in upper positions in sales, in digital media creation, several different media aspects of what marketing people will do with a large corporation, people who've got 10, 15, 20 years in with a company, and they're being let go, right? Actually, before some of them are being let go before they retire, which is pretty dirty, but they are being let go. And so it's unfortunate that these type of things happen, but they do happen. It's not uncommon. And with the amount of money that's it's bleeding. The country is bleeding in debt. And so with the amount of money that we are in debt with, we have to do something. And that means cutting back on programs. It means cutting back on government jobs. The government was so bloated with people working, redundantly doing things that they needed to trim it.
Philosophies in terms of how to govern for the American people. The Democratic Party philosophy is clear. We are ready, willing, and able to find bipartisan common ground anytime, any place, to enact spending agreements that actually make life better for the American people. But in order to do that, we need to have partners on the other side of the aisle who are actually willing to find a bipartisan path forward. But what we've seen from Republicans from the very beginning of this presidency is a my way or the highway approach. That's been the Republican philosophy. Jam your extremism down the throats of the American people. That's what we've seen from day one of this presidency. That's the
Not sure if it's a glitch, but I just scored ease tactic. Top pick men's casual pants at 70.
period of time in American history. What have we seen from Donald Trump and Republicans during this shutdown? A consistent unwillingness to actually find common ground in order to make life better.
Well, there was no common ground when President Biden was in office. It was the my way or highway traffic signal sign in the road. Didn't matter what it was. We have the investigation of the Biden auto pen, and of course, everything that was being signed, all the executive orders, all of the folks that were given pardons, all being completely investigated. And so this is why I'm sure most of you who will watch this will understand that the Democratic Party is the most evil, narcissistic party that I've ever seen in the history of my experience with dealing and watching politics. I mean, I graduated from high school in 1977, so in 10th grade, which we 1975 is when I really became interested in the debating and what politics was about. So, I mean, I was 4 years old when President Kennedy was assassinated. I was sitting on the floor with my mother, who was ironing her clothes on a black and white Zenith television that was in the living room, a floor model. And I remember seeing her crying, emotionally crying, and the news coming on. Walter Cronkite was on, and there are several others that are now gone who made the announcement of what had happened. Kennedy was beloved by the people. He was beloved, and it was a horrible day for a lot of folks. But I think Mr. Jeffries here needs to get a reality check, and I'm willing to give it to him.
But costs haven't gone down. Republicans haven't done a damn thing to lower the high cost of living. Costs haven't gone down in this country. Costs have gone up. Inflation is on the way up. Housing costs out of control. Grocery costs out of control. Electricity bills out of control.
That's just an absolute 100% narcissistic lie. This guy, he can't speak without moving his hands to begin with. But statistically, you can go, this is information that's available everybody online. Anybody who could go, who wants to do the research. While President Biden was in office, I'll just give you a couple of nuggets here. While President Biden was in office, when we had the largest percentage of increase of illegals coming into the country, and I'm not saying that this is a specific time when they only came in. During the entire 4 years of his presidency, they were coming in. But at the peak would be 2022 and 2023, that physical year, at the peak, there was like a 30% increase in illegals coming into the country. Consequently, at the very same time, there was a 30 to 35% increase in profits for grocery store chains like Walmart. Walmart actually posted on their profit and loss statement, their shareholders' information, it's posted online that during that time frame, they made a 32.4% profit. Now, this inflation that's going up, the prices that are going up, the immigration that was going up, this was a perfect storm. This was done by the Biden administration to begin with for the greed of trying to get as many votes as they could so that they're basically buying votes. Get as many votes as they could by allowing all of these illegals to come in. They're going to depend upon the government. And I mean, if you had any common sense to yourself at all, taking one look at the federal deficit, you would have never let that many people in here, knowing that you were going to give them benefits, welfare, a place to live and have it paid for, food, EBT, SNAP benefits, paying their hotel bills, paying for their medical bills. you're talking 10, 15, 20 million people that were let in, and we were doing all that for them. And so consequently, if I'm a grocery store chain, if I'm a grocery store, and I know I can make more profit based on sales because it's sales, more volume is going to make me more profit, then I'm going to go ahead and do some of the things that any other business would do. I'm going to pay attention to what's going on with the news, and I'm going to put two and two together. If there's that many more people coming into the country, that's that many more people's mouths who have to be fed. And if the federal government is going to step in and give those people that money to buy it, I can easily manipulate and control the cost and the profit of what these products are, because I could still advertise them as everyday low price. And then when inflation does kick in, and it did, inflation started to kick in, and just about at the same time when it started kicking in, rose to 9-10%. This clown, Jeffries, is trying to pretend as if it's all Trump's fault because it's not coming down fast enough. Okay, so we agree inflation is still rising at a much more smaller pace, a much more lower pace than what it was under President Biden. But we agree it's difficult. I agree it's difficult to get this under control by allowing them to have so many illegals come into the country. And as they get deported, grocery store chains and other avenues, other companies will be forced to lower their prices. They'll be forced to do it because there's not that many people who are buying the product anymore. And on top of that, there's not that many people who are working the jobs for less wages than what Americans would work. So they'll be forced to lower their prices. They'll be forced to hire Americans. It's a very vicious cycle with what the Biden administration created. And if they think that we're going to jump out of it within a year or two, I just don't think that's going to happen. President Trump was pretty zealous about it, and he wanted to attack it. The economy is his number one priority, and I can certainly understand why. But as Americans, especially as Republicans, I understand why. It's going to take time. I have faith in the president that he will do what he says he'll do, and it will take time to bring it down.
To me, you're from Brooklyn, right? Now, Mr. Speaker, I got to be honest, I was tempted to say, Brooklyn is always in the house. But instead, since my mother raised me with some sense, Lenita Jeffries, I said, yes, sir, I'm from Brooklyn. And then he said something to me that I've never forgotten. He said, well, I hear some positive things about you from your predecessor, but Washington, D.C., young man, can be a rough place. So I don't want you to get into any trouble unless it's good trouble. And I just wanted to stop by on the House floor to make sure it was clear to the American people that the spirit of John Lewis lives amongst House Democrats, and we will continue to get into good trouble to make their life better. That's our commitment to every single American all across this country, from this day and for every day moving forward. And it was John Lewis who said to us that ours is not the struggle of one day, 1 week, or 1 year. Ours is the struggle of a lifetime, and maybe even many lifetimes. And each one of us in every generation must do our part. Mr. Lewis, we love you. We were blessed by our opportunity to serve with you, and House Democrats are here to do our part. We're in this fight until we win this fight for the American people. I yield back.
The gentleman yields. Members are reminded to refrain from engaging in personalities towards the president. The gentlewoman from Connecticut has 30 seconds remaining and is recognized.
I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman from Connecticut yields. The gentleman from Oklahoma is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's my distinct pleasure to yield the balance of our time to the distinguished Speaker of the House, my very good friend and a person I admire greatly.
1 minute. 1 minute.
I'm actually just going to hold you to 1 minute, Mr.
Oh, okay.
Speaker. My good friend, the gentleman from Louisiana, Speaker Mike Johnson.
The gentleman from Louisiana is
Thank you.
recognized.
I want to thank my friend Chairman Cole's done an extraordinary job in this process. And Mr. Speaker, we all know why we're here. House Democrats voted to shut the government down. It was 54 days ago when we had that vote, September 19th. And since that time, Senate Democrats have voted 14 times to close the government. Republicans voted a collective 15 times to open the government for the people, and the Democrats voted that many times to close it. And then they admitted, many of them, and we could name them here, but I'm not going to take the time, they admitted that they were using the American people as leverage in this political game. They knew that it would cause pain, and they did it anyway. The whole exercise was pointless. It was wrong, and it was cruel. In mere moments, I want you to watch the board. They're going to do it again. I'm going to guess for you that most of our Democrat colleagues are going to vote again to close the government, again to take food out of the mouths of families that need it, again to deny pay to federal employees, again to stall flights and cancel airlines and do all the rest that they've done. But we are not going to let them succeed in that gambit.
If they
That's right.
do, I can see things getting really ugly.
While the Democrats keep voting to shut the government down, Republicans are going to vote to open it back up. And with that, we're going to get the American government running again and working for the people as they deserve. I'm going to close with this. You know, as Speaker, you have the ability to talk as long as you want, but I'm not going to do that tonight. We're not going to waste any more time of the people. I'm just going to say this. I think on the Republican side, we operated in good faith. We offered a clean, nonpartisan CR. We were honest and transparent with the American people from the very beginning, and every single day of the shutdown, we went out and looked right into the camera with a press conference and told the American people the simple truth. We have done for the people what has been right and just and truthful. And in the end, that is what God honors always. Don't forget it.
Amen.
We need to get this government open as soon as possible, and I'm going to yield back the remainder of my time so we can do that. The American people demand it and deserve it. My friends, let's get this done. Thank you. I yield back.
A lot of folks don't know, there's a recent article that was released about Mike Johnson and how he collects his pay. He lives off of $3,000 a month, and the rest of it is donated.
The gentleman yields.
To
The gentleman from Oklahoma has
homeless
3 minutes remaining
organizations.
and is recognized.
I yield back the balance of my time.
nonprofit
The
organizations.
gentleman yields. All time for debate has expired. Pursuant to House Resolution 873, the previous question
he lives
is
off
ordered.
$3,000 a month.
The question is, on the motion by the gentleman from
Over
Oklahoma, Mr.
$200,000
Cole.
a year salary.
All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chairs, the ayes have it. For what purpose does the gentleman from Connecticut
Mr.
stand?
Speaker, I request the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 15-minute vote.
Here we go again. So, recapping this, and then in case you really don't understand, if you don't have any knowledge about what was taking place and why they were doing this, is that this is the final one motion to concur in the Senate amendment. So this is the final vote. And so let's really briefly take a look at the vote of just recapping what's holding it up. Democrats are really ticked off that they did not get the funding for the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. Now, I remember very distinctively when President Obama created this, and after looking at it several weeks and analyzing what was put together for it, even when it was released, there was promised government subsidies were promised to offset the cost of the monthly premiums. Now, I looked at that and I thought, okay, well, that's kind of strange because we already have Medicare, we already have Medicaid. Why do we have an Affordable Care Act where subsidies are going? And Medicare and Medicaid, my Medicare is $174 a month. And Medicaid, I don't qualify for because I make too much money. So I'm trying to figure out, in my head, I was trying to figure out, well, who is this Affordable Care Act insurance for? Who is this for? And they were listing and showing people who were making $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year, and they didn't have no health insurance. So these would be individuals that were maybe self-employed. Typically, that's who they are, self-employed, and they don't have the income with what they're earning at $75,000, $85,000, $90,000 a year. They don't have the income to affordably buy the health care that they need. So you look at the healthcare industry, when you go to work for a corporation and you take on their health insurance that they offer, sometimes there are no allowances for pre-existing conditions, and there are, of course, different conditions that come with it each time if you were to exchange employers or if you were to sign up for health insurance at your employer. These were for people who were not qualified for the Affordable Care Act. They're not qualified for Medicare. They're not qualified for Medicaid. They don't have any health insurance at all. Now, there's a relatively large portion of the United States that does that, a large number that you would not think that there were that many people who can't have health insurance because they can't afford it. There's a lot of entrepreneurs, there's a lot of digital creators, a lot of people doing this kind of thing on YouTube full time. It's their job, and they don't have they don't have a retirement, a pension fund, or anything to fall back on. And on top of that, they can't receive Medicare or Medicaid. So they make too much money. So there's alternatives to helping this work. If it's a married couple, one of the two needs to work outside the home, not have a business that requires 8, 10, 12 hours a day of both of them working on the business. One of them needs to be employed outside the home where that person's receiving medical insurance. And this problem would be solved in 5 or 10 minutes. Make it a requirement that they work, because then they can obtain the health insurance from the employer and put their spouse on that health insurance. This Affordable Care Act, from the time it was passed, what Obama did is that he dumped subsidies into it. A subsidy is the dollar amount that the government has to spend on the premiums. He put the money in the pocket of the insurance companies rather than really saving anybody money. And so they did make it more affordable, quote unquote, but not as affordable as what you would think. Now, my brother and his wife, before he started receiving Medicare, they were on the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, and they were paying $993 a month with a cap of $10,000 out-of-pocket expense that had to be reached first before the insurance would pay anything. That don't sound affordable to me. Now, he's got his own business. Him and his wife and his family are a part of it also. Is my nephew. So how in the world, how does that work out? He makes more than the $85,000 threshold, but insurance is just astronomical. Insurance was nearly a mortgage payment in today's dollars. That's not affordable. And of course, Obamacare and the people who orchestrated this, particularly Barack Obama himself, and then as the can was kicked down the road, they knew that the premiums were going to rise because the subsidies would have to cover those premiums. They were going to rise because of the cost of medical services. Doctors increased their costs all the time. And so in order to remain politically correct, to keep that out-of-pocket expense out of the recipient of the medical subsidiary in the Obamacare, the care, you the only way to keep it low enough is to continue to pour on more subsidies, pour on more support from the federal government. And when the spigot runs dry, you don't wait for it to happen. You have to stop the flow. And so these people are important. They should receive affordable care. I believe that they're entitled to affordable care. But Obama's affordable care was designed to make insurance companies rich, not helping the American public, especially when you required subsidies to be a part of it and knew by kicking the can down the road that you were going to reach this plateau one day. You'd be out of office, but you were going to reach it one day where it's costing too much money. So the Republicans held up the shutdown of the government because of that specific thing. Democrats did. They wanted $1.5 trillion in subsidies with other spending to be added to this Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, to keep these people who are purchasing the insurance on the payroll of insurance money that's going to the insurance companies. Why would the Democrats fight so strongly for making sure that the subsidies that the federal government was spending, that it needed to be increased? The Democrats were calling President Trump out just minutes ago. Akeem Jeffries, whatever the clown's name is, he was just calling out President Trump, and many of his predecessors before him, his constituents before him, were saying the same thing. Inflation's high, people can't make their light bill, and so on and so forth. Well, why do you think that is? Why? Do you think the president turns on a magic spigot and it all goes up? Do you think it's because he's given the American taxpayers the largest tax break in the history of the country, and he give it to moderates, he gave it to the poor, he gave it to middle class, and he gives some to the upper class rich people too? I don't get it. I don't get what these people think. And so under Biden's administration, inflation was rampant. He created the increase in the cost. Not only did medical costs go up, but food went up in price too. I mean, the items that were $1, $2 at Walmart are now, the ones that were $1 are now $2, and the ones that were $2 are now pretty close to $4. So on the items that they probably researched this, and they said, this is where we can raise our prices, this is where we'll make the most profit. And I'm sure they sat down and they did it. So I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it from the Democratic Party that all this has gotten worse while President Trump has been in office for the last 11 months. They're a bunch of whining, evil, demonically possessed, narcissistic people. Our Democratic Party, in my opinion, is the worst party ever to serve in Congress. Their woke ideology.
Yes, this is why I switched to injection-free weight loss.
Everything
I was eating healthy, working out every day, and nothing would budge. I've lost, I think, 22 or 23 pounds at this point.
I noticed that my weight was really starting to creep up, and I just wasn't happy with the way that I looked. I have lost around 20 pounds.
Diet, exercise, I felt like I had tried everything. Finally, I stumbled across hers and thought, what do I have to lose? I have lost so far just over 35 pounds.
Weight Loss by Hers offers access to oral medication kits. Simple, all.
That's gone. Commercials at YouTube just destroy a podcast. So I'm not going to carry on too much longer. I'm going to be silent, and I'll go offline with the camera here for a minute. We'll see what happens. It looks like Republican 73, 173 yay, Democrats 172. Even though the 8 Democrats left their party and they went and asked for the government, they voted for the government to be reopened. This is a motion to vote and concur in the Senate the amendment that was placed on what they voted for on Saturday when it ended, or Thursday, what day it was. I can't even remember now. All right, I'll be back here shortly. We'll see where this goes.
On this vote, the yeas are 222, the nays are 209. The bill is passed. The motion is adopted.
Well, there you got it. Now we're waiting on Epstein stuff.
Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. The chair lays before the House a communication.
The Honorable the Speaker, House of Representatives, sir. I respectfully request to be relieved from assignments to the House Armed Services Committee and the House Select Committee on competition between the United States and the Chinese Communist Party, effective immediately. It has been an honor and privilege to serve on these committees on behalf of my constituents and the American people. Signed sincerely, Mikey Sherrill, Member of Congress.
Without objection, the resignation is accepted.
Build a website you love with Wix. For your words, create your brand.
The House will be in order. Yeah. Shh. The House will be in order. For what purpose does the gentleman from Kentucky seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I offer a privileged resolution and ask for its immediate consideration.
The clerk will report the resolution.
House Resolution 874, resolved that the House has heard with profound sorrow of the death of the Honorable Richard B. Cheney, a former Vice President of the United States of America. Resolved that the clerk communicate these resolutions to the Senate and transmit a copy thereof to the family of the deceased. Resolved that when the House adjourns today, it adjourn as a further mark of respect to the memory of the deceased.
The resolution is agreed to, and the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Pursuant to Clause 13 of Rule 1 and House Resolution 874, the House stands adjourned until 9 a.m. tomorrow as a further mark of respect to the memory of the
nation. The form of the resolution noticed by the gentlelady from Washington will appear in the record at this point. The chair will not at this point determine whether the resolution constitutes a question of privilege. That determination will be made at a time designated for consideration of the resolution. The House will be in order. Members are instructed to clear the well. The House will be in order and members will clear the well. For what purpose does the gentleman from Illinois
Culture, Russ Redding, described Krista as a natural teacher whose dedication makes a lasting impression on students in our communities. Most certainly, Krista is a source of pride for the entire district. On behalf of everyone in Pennsylvania's 13th Congressional District, I congratulate Krista and look forward to the continuation of her education for the community. Thank you, and I yield.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Connecticut, Mr. Courtney, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, after months and months of President Trump insisting that his tariffs are not paid by Americans, insisting that tariffs don't drive up prices, insisting that there will be no exclusions or exemptions from his Liberation Day tariffs that he imposed back in April, on Friday afternoon, the White House very quietly released a statement that they in fact are exempting and carving out tariffs for a number of goods which were blindingly obvious were going to be costing more because we do not produce any of those goods here in this country. So included in his order is coffee, tea, fruit juices, tropical fruits, spices, bananas, oranges, and tomatoes. And obviously, you talk to anybody who's been in a grocery store lately, the prices for all of those have gone up by large margins, again, in the wake of the April tariffs that were put into place. Coffee is up 19%, bananas up 7%, oranges and lettuce up 3% and 4%. Again, it was so clear to anyone who actually was connected to the real world that grocery prices are going up and that we had to take steps to carve out exemptions for the sake of American consumers and our working families and middle class, that it was amazing to see how the president in October was actually giving speeches where he said prices have come way down. We have gotten prices way down for groceries. That's the mentality which is in that White House. And again, these were tariffs that he imposed unilaterally without consulting Congress. And the question, though, is that it's good that, again, there's going to be some price relief for some of these items, which never should have been tariffed to begin with. But it begs the question about, well, what about the rest of the economy that is getting hammered by tariffs? The National Association of Home Builders announced after the tariffs were announced that it would raise the average cost of a new home by $11,000 because of the fact that so many parts and pieces that go into new home construction are imported. That's just a reality in our economy. And when we talk about the cost of living and affordability, if anything is close to maybe groceries, it's the cost of housing in terms of getting rents and new construction restarted. So what about that, Mr. President? Why don't we also look at what is clearly happening in our economy right now and provide relief for the American people who are groaning under the...
Well, I'll talk about that for a couple of seconds here. This guy really doesn't sound like he knows what he's talking about, but oh well. And of course, I really love when a politician who's supposed to be educated on the laws and educated on the economy, and he's brought this to the floor to be voted on, uses a article that's published by not a conservative, but a Democratic liberal leaning newspaper, the Washington Post. They don't show any favoritism towards Trump at all. or the Republicans. That's one thing. But besides the point, don't bring me articles from Washington Post. Bring me real data, the actual data of the organizations who are involved in showing me these prices. Right now, you're standing behind a podium and you're telling people in a generic fashion and way that prices have gone up. You're spewing out some numbers to make it sound like it's really horrible. Bananas went up 7%. Okay, well, bananas were 57 cents a pound. They went up the highest they did under Joe Biden's administration. I mean, if you recall, just a little bit less than a year ago, bananas were roughly around 40 cents a pound. So they went up the most during Biden's administration. And they are starting to come down as far as the heighten of the price. But they're not going to come down to the price that they were for quite some time, if not ever. They may not, but they will come down and fluctuate and flat out with inflation. And this gentleman obviously is, let's explain it's real simple. 2 minutes here. If diesel fuel is $3.90 a gallon, and it was $3.50 a gallon, that's 40 cents per gallon that goes on diesel fuel on trucks that transport groceries to grocery store chains, at trucks that transport cattle to where they're going to be slaughtered, trucks that transport anything that's going to be eaten, non-perishable items, canned goods, all of that stuff that weighs a ton, thousands of pounds, gets transported by truck. And when when diesel fuel goes up, that's a reflection on the cost of those products to transport them. It's not just a chain reaction from insurance to employee per hour to benefits. All those are combined in with it. You can't just blanketly say in a blanket general statement that under Trump these things have gone up and tariffs are the reason for it. President Trump has been paying on our national debt through the charge of those tariffs. Now, if our inflation is 30 to 50% less than what it was under Biden, and we're collecting tariffs in the neighborhood of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars, even trillions, to be used to pay down our deficit, where was the money that Biden's administration was making to pay on the deficit? Because at this point right now, just the interest alone on the deficit is over $1 trillion per year. Just on our budget for our military, it's reaching $1 trillion per year. Where was the money coming from the Biden administration? Oh, I know. They wanted to tax the American taxpayer, the middle class, everybody. It was going to be the highest increase in taxes in the country's history. You were looking at, if you took home $700 a week, that was your take-home pay, you're going to have to make about $1,100 in order to take home $700. That's how much money was going to come out of your paycheck in taxes. Federal, Social Security, state, FICA. That was going to be a huge increase, huge. And then they needed that money to, of course, pay on the deficit. But it goes far deeper than that. With all the doge and the fraud and the money that's been sent overseas and everything that's being done for this, I mean, $500,000 or $1 million to study transgender social activity in Africa. Just throwing something stupid out there. Why are we spending that money? Did it really make sense? I think it does. I think it does make sense. If I create something for a minority and I find something within that realm of a minority where I can consistently control the masses with it, I could put a lot of money in my pocket. Seriously, a lot. Well, how do you do that, Mike? Well, you control the laws of a minority by making them universally adaptable by the masses. That minority controls a certain aspect of government where their rights are predicated or displayed compared to other rights that have been given to us through the Constitution. So you give that minority the same benefit of those rights, even if it's just a 1 or 2% of the population, like our transgender population is. The transgender ideology and the woke movement is still a huge moneymaker. Medical doctors promoted it. They were going to make huge money on it. We went from 1% to 3%, roughly 3% now of America's population, close to 3%, identifies as transgender. Some of those have had, my stomach growling, some of those have had, well, that's what happens with a live podcast. There's nothing edited out. Some of those have had reassignment surgery, and in the amount of money that it cost, some of them couldn't afford it. So who pays for it? We do. And so you control the masses by implementing that type of ideology in that sector first, and then it has a snowball effect. There's so many other things that come about with it that it allows the Democrats to improvise and to impose certain restrictions on American people and then collect the tax money to pay for it. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous to pay for transgender surgeries for prisoners. They get some type of a benefit. It was ridiculous to pass a law where a transgender can say, hey, I identify as a woman midstream of my prosecution, and if I'm found guilty, I want to be put into a woman's prison, even though the junk that's hanging between my legs proves I'm not. I'm being a little, it's definitely not Christian-like, but that's just how I'm going to describe it. Yeah, I think you get the drift. These are topics that have long been discussed. We know it. Even as Christians and as conservatives, we know that there is definitely a large amount of evil things going on to make money with. And Scripture tells us that the love of money is the root of all evil. Always has been, always will be. Let's go back to this guy.
To hear them perform live and be there when they were awarded this honor. They even played Golden from K-pop Demon Hunters. My kids listened to that on repeat, and so I appreciate them doing that, and I appreciate them representing our community so well. Congratulations to Director Dan Adams and the entire Light Ridge community, and good luck in 2027. I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Self, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize 22 of our nation's finest veterans. These individuals are exceptional American heroes who demonstrated selfless commitment to serving our nation and their communities. This is a moment to acknowledge those who have sacrificed much and devoted all to safeguard our country. This year, Texas 3rd District is saluting brave veterans who have exhibited remarkable service, leadership, integrity, and dedication. These veterans represent true role models within our community, deserving our utmost respect, acknowledgement, and honor. The veterans from Texas 3rd Congressional District receiving the 2025 Veteran Commendation Award are as follows. Sergeant Christopher Acevedo, U.S. Army. Captain Travis Mills, U.S. Army. Major Gary Billings, U.S. Marine Corps. Second Lieutenant Charles Newbecker, U.S. Army. Master Sergeant Fernando Cruz Jr., U.S. Marine Corps. Senior Chief Petty Officer Vincent Riggs, U.S. Navy. Senior Airman David Davis, U.S. Air Force. Major Philip Shortino, U.S. Army. Staff Sergeant David Dubé, U.S. Air Force. Senior Airman Danny Stasik, U.S. Air Force, Staff Sergeant Robert Dubé, U.S. Air Force, Sergeant Willie Frank Stevenson, U.S. Army, Master Sergeant Patrick Irvin, U.S. Air Force, Captain Ian Sullivan, U.S. Marine Corps, Sergeant Ayman Hatqua, U.S. Army, Colonel Dick Thompson, Jr., U.S. Air Force, Sergeant Paul David Hoke, U.S. Army, Chief Petty Officer Michael Thompson, Jr., U.S. Navy, Petty Officer Second Class.
Don't let your vacation rental and your hammock be invisible. Get seen, get booked on Booking.com.
Command Master Chief Petty Officer Robert Jordan, U.S. Navy, Gunnery Sergeant Nick Mendoza, Jr., U.S. Marine Corps. To these 22 veterans, I salute you, God bless you, and God bless America. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor Captain Carol Young McGibbon, a distinguished graduate of the United States Military Academy at West Point. Commissioned into the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in 1980 as part of the historic first class of female graduates, Captain McGibbon served our nation with distinction in leadership positions in Germany and beyond. Following her active duty service, Mrs. McGibbon dedicated 22 years to mentoring future Army leaders, assisting over 165 candidates in earning admission to West Point. Since 2003, Captain McGibbon has been a West Point admissions representative, and since 2006, the Congressional District Coordinator for Texas' 3rd Congressional District. In that capacity, she served as the West Point Liaison Officer for 3 successive members of Congress, beginning with Congressman Sam Johnson from 2006 to 2018. Recognized by peers and leaders alike, Mrs. McGibbon received the Congressional Veteran Commendation Award from Congressman Sam Johnson in 2017, and the Ray Colvin Service Award from the West Point Society of North Texas in 2023. Captain McGibbon's legacy of service reaches well beyond her professional achievements. She met her late husband, Kevin Vance McGibbon, while they were classmates at the United States Military Academy, and they married in October of 1981 after graduation. Captain Kevin McGibbon served as an infantry officer in the U.S. Army stationed in Germany during the Cold War from 1980 to 1985, earning his Ranger Tab and Airborne Wings. Together, they raised 3 children who continue the proud tradition of military service, including officers and graduates of West Point and the U.S. Air Force. The Army Lacrosse Endowment stands as a testament to the enduring commitment of Carol and Kevin McGibbon to the values of West Point and the U.S. Army. Carol McGibbon's dedication to West Point and to our nation embodies the highest ideals of duty, honor, country. Therefore, I honor Captain Carol McGibbon for her lifetime of service to the United States, to West Point, and to the countless young men and women whose lives she has helped shape. And we extend our gratitude and best wishes upon her retirement as Academy Liaison Officer for West Point. The enduring legacy Captain Carol McGibbon leaves at West Point stands as a beacon for those who aspire to lead and serve, ensuring the Academy's proud tradition endures for generations to come. May God bless Captain Carol McGibbon. May God bless the United States of America. I yield back the balance of my time.
The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from New Mexico, Ms. Stansbury, for 5 minutes.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I would love to just say welcome back to the House of Representatives. This is our first full week back after the shutdown and the 54 days of lockout that we experienced here in this chamber after a completely wasteful, unavoidable, and painful shutdown that not only harmed families, workers in our communities, but cost our country billions of dollars. It did not result ultimately in the fight to end the attacks on our health care. And so rather than coming back this week after our shutdown, the longest shutdown in history, to address the real issues that were at the heart of this debate, lowering healthcare costs, addressing the healthcare cliff, addressing the cost of food, addressing the cost of housing, what are we doing here this week? attacking our public lands and opening them up for oil and gas drilling. This week, our colleagues across the aisle, fresh from their multi-week vacation, have come with a whole slew of special asks by special interests from the oil and gas industry. We have HJ Res 130, the Congressional Review Act to reverse a resource management plan that was developed with tribal consultation and public benefit to open the door to coal development in an area where communities have been abundantly clear that they do not want these attacks on these public lands because of the threats it poses to climate change, to public health, and to their future. Why are they ignoring what these communities have already said? And yet here we are voting on legislation this week that would repeal community-based strategies to protect our public lands. All three of the CRA measures that are scheduled to be voted on this week are literally put forward to open some of our nation's most sacred and treasured places. This includes opening protected areas in the Arctic that are not only important to protect for ecological, for wildlife, but for cultural reasons. Areas that our colleagues know tribal communities have fought for generations to protect. Areas that our colleagues know are sensitive. Areas that we know during the first Trump administration when they tried to sell them off to the lowest bidder, the oil and gas industry didn't even want to drill there. And yet here they are trying to reverse the protections that have been put in place to protect not only these important lands in the Arctic, but these sacred lands. Mr. Speaker, these bills not only impact these lands, but are part of a larger pattern that we see in this administration, revoking previous protections that have been put in place to respect not only the ecological importance of lands, but also sacred places. In fact, during the shutdown, tribes in my district received notice that the administration was considering repealing the protections for Chaco Canyon. Mr. Speaker, I want you to understand what Chaco Canyon is. It is a global World Heritage Site, but it is a sacred site. It is a place for generations Pueblo and Diné Navajo people have come to pray. It is a place where on a cold morning, standing on top of the mesa overlooking Pueblo Bonito, you can see the ancient cities, kivas, and sacred sites, not just below, but that stretch out across a landscape as far as you can see, where you can walk in the footsteps of people who built these structures, and you understand why it is sacred. It is the ancestral homeland of the Pueblo people. It is a place where today religious leaders and community leaders continue to come for their religious practices. And it is a place that we have fought to protect for generations. And yet, in the middle of the longest government shutdown, as tribes could not even get basic programs and services to operate, could not figure out if their grants and their programs were able to continue to operate, could not get access to lands that were important to them, this administration had the gall to send a letter.
Your time has expired.
To our tribes saying that they were going to revoke protections. So I am here to say we will fight back and we will defeat this effort. I yield back.
Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the Chair declares the House in recess until 2 p.m. today.
To send a
Your time has
letter
expired.
to our tribes saying that they were going to revoke protections. So I am here to say we will fight back and we will defeat.
Most certainly, Krista is a source of.
Nation, the form of the resolution noticed by the gentlelady from Washington will appear
Okay,
in
there
the
you
record
have it.
at this point.
It looks.
The chair will not at this point
looks
determine
like,
whether the resolution constitutes a question of privilege.
Looks like the Epstein files won't be dealt with till about 2 p.m., so we'll be back on
Continuing
at that
appropriations,
time.
agriculture, legislative branch, military construction, and veterans affairs, and